What's going on, boys? Keg back with another UFC Fight Night main card and prelim card breakdown, obviously, for tonight's UFC Fight Night against, I don't even know what's the main event. Oh, Tsarukyan and Gamrot. Sorry, I haven't slept a second. There's a guy weed whacking outside the window right now, which was a good time to start. So before I break down the card, I always wait till the end, but I'm going to say it at the beginning. If you're not signed up to Run Pure Bets, you should be. The website's crushing in the month of June. JJ and Joey are 71 and 48. They're up 22 units in MLB in the month of June. I'm up 18 units in NASCAR. Spread had a banger to end the NBA season. So, I mean, the boys are just doing the damn thing right now. So, for $60 a month or $20 as an add-on to the DFS side, it's really worth the investment if you're a hardcore recreational bettor and you bet on sports a lot. The Discord community is phenomenal. There's a ton of content. There's daily picks. And the website's profitable. So I encourage everybody to check it out. Use the promo code BETS25 off. It gets you 25% off the first week or month. And if you signed up yesterday, between me, JJ, and Joey, we would have paid your membership for 6 months. So I encourage everybody to check that out. And with that, I will break down this card for the 100th time. Vanessa Demopolis versus Jinh Yu Frey. This is a shitty fight to start the card with. It's not good at all. But we got to break it down. There's only 12 fights. So I think that this is a pass spot from a betting perspective. I don't know if you want to get involved in DFS. Title, DC, and me did a video yesterday on the Run Pure Sports side, which was a full betting and DFS breakdown. Title and DC are just monsters when it comes to DFS. So if you are into DFS, go over to the Run Pure Sports side and check out the video that we did yesterday. From a betting perspective, this fight is a total pass, right? Because it feels pretty cut and dry. One fighter can probably win this fight no matter where they go, whether it's standing or on the ground in Jinh Yu Frey. And the other fighter's really only a threat on the ground in Vanessa Demopolis. So I think that Jinh Yu Frey should win this fight unless she's going to get caught with a submission from top control the exact way that Vanessa Demopolis caught Gomez Juarez in one of her last fights. But Jinh Yu Frey seems way stronger. She throws punches that matter if they land right and they hit the button. She does have power. Her leg kicks are pretty wicked. She's got solid top control wrestling where she could really rain down ground and pound on an opponent and finish them that way if she lands right. Although she has to be careful of Vanessa Demopolis catching her in a sub off her back. On the flip side, Demopolis made her debut at 125 against Aldrich. Now she's fighting at strawweight. She's a BJJ black belt. She's training at Fight Ready, and she really can get a submission from anywhere. She's very skilled on the ground, but she's a horrific striker. Wild, no technique at all. Her hands are low. Her defensive striking is basically non-existent. So can Demopolis get the takedown and grab another sub? I guess it's possible if it falls in her lap. Yeah, right. It could happen. But if you take a look at Jinh Yu Frey's record, she only has one submission loss in her career. So her defensive grappling game is solid, right? She's only been caught one time. But my issue with betting Jinh Yu Frey in this fight is this is her 5th fight in the UFC, right? Her first 4 fights, she's been a plus 130, a plus 120, plus 155, plus 118 underdog, all 4 fights. So how on earth can we back her at -2? What's the current line? Yesterday it was 240. Now it's -225. So you're seeing a little buyback on that number coming back on Demopolis, right? But still, how do you back her at -225 when she's been plus money in all 4 fights and she's 2-2? I can't do it. So you shouldn't do it. So I'm going to pick Jinh Yu Frey to win the fight, but save your money because there are a ton of other spots on this card where I think that there are gettable spots that you can attack, right? All right, next fight. Brian Kelleher, Mario Batista. Yeah, I'm a Boom Boom Kelleher fan. I like him, right? He comes in off the loss against Umar Nurmagomedov. Nobody faults him for that. He was severely outclassed. And that's what happens to Brian Kelleher anytime he takes a step up in competition, every single time, right? But all that said, I'm a fan of him because if you have your money on him, he's always going to fight for your money. Always. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win the bet. So he's a wrestle boxer at heart. He doesn't really have devastating power, but I mean, I guess it gets the job done, right? He does have really solid footwork. For the most part, his cardio usually holds up well. His ground game's okay. You know, a lot of guys in the UFC have really solid top control. He's good at avoiding the takedown, and he's got a wicked squeeze if he can get you in a guillotine, right? But there are concerns. My first concern is his hand speed in exchanges is really starting to slow down. If you look, right? But he does beat everyone that he's supposed to. So that begs the question: is Mario Batista a step up in class, or is he around Brian Kelleher's level? I don't know the answer. I'm not sure. Our sample size on Mario Batista is small. He only has 11 fights in his MMA career, but we know he is very explosive on the feet, right? He's got a good Muay Thai base, great jab that he fights behind from range. His timing's on point. He uses all his limbs well. And he's fast in the pocket. So Brian Kelleher is going to be at a disadvantage when it comes to hand speed, in my opinion, right? So I think that Batista should be able to get in and out of the pocket clean before Kelleher gets his counters off. And I think that's a big aspect to this fight. Besides that, Batista's very good in the clinch, right? He's very good at getting back to his feet once he gets taken down. And last I checked, the odds opened offshore. I think Mario Batista was like -130. Since then, he's taken some money. Right now, Mario Batista's -175, which is exactly what he was when we did the show yesterday. So not a ton of movement in the last 48 hours for Mario Batista. At the end of the day, I think that I just haven't liked what I've seen from Brian Kelleher lately, even in the fights that he's won. But do I feel great about Mario Batista here? Not really, because Brian Kelleher has only been knocked out once. And I lean that if Mario Batista is going to win the fight, he's either going to catch him or he's going to grind out a decision. So if you take a look at the odds, Mario Batista's KO or decision prop is minus 130. That gives you about 45 cents of value off the steam that the money line's taking. I lean that that's how he wins this fight. Now, Brian Kelleher does have 7 submission losses in his career, which worries you if you're going to take the KO or decision prop. But that being said, Mario Batista isn't really known for his offensive submission game. He's known for his Muay Thai striking, really. So the pick is going to be Mario Batista. If I was betting it, it would be the KO or decision prop at minus 130. Aside from that, I'm really not looking to get involved here. Anybody in the chat? Oh, East Coast, what's up, buddy? Oh, wow, buzzer beater. What's up, boys? All right, next fight, JP Bays, Cody Durden. If I was paid out every time that JP Bays got dropped in the UFC in 2 fights, I could probably not have to bet on sports anymore. The dude's been dropped 7 times in 2 fights. That is a concern, right? But if we're being fair, he did fight Montel Jackson and he did fight Bruno Silva. And they have a dozen knockouts between the 2 of them. So I guess you could make excuses for a couple of those drops getting dropped. But, man, it's hard to find excuses for all 7, right? So it's been a bad start to his career. Now, have we seen flashes? Has he looked good in spots? Yeah. He had a good solid round 1 against Jackson in the first. He was able to take him down. He transitioned beautifully immediately into full mount, right? And then he almost choked Jackson out. But he didn't. And after that round, he got absolutely fucking worked for the remaining 2 rounds. So there are concerns, to say the least. But, I mean, he has excuses, I guess. He's not a great striker, right? His technique really isn't there. And while he has shown some power when he fought in LFA, it hasn't really translated so far to the UFC. Now, on the ground, he's a stud, a very good wrestling base. He transitions well. His offensive submission game is on point. And the verdict is still out on JP Bays, right? Okay. Now, Cody Durden is a really, really similar fighter. Not a great striker either, right? I going into watch it, when I watched tape on these 2 guys this week, I thought Cody Durden's striking was going to be better going into the tape. After the tape, though, I still give the edge to JP Bays, even though he has not looked great. I would still give him the edge in the striking department, right? Now, on the ground, Cody Durden was a 2-time state high school wrestling champ. He had a dozen Division I offers, passed on them all, and decided to pursue an MMA career. But the kid was a stud. The most impressive thing he's done in the cage was probably the draw against Chris Gutierrez, I guess, right? He lost his last time out against a way more skilled prospect than Makaev. Can't blame him there. But he did win the fight before. He was winning the fight against Jimmy Flick until he was caught with his hand in the cookie jar, and Jimmy Flick ended up tapping him out. So, again, he's had flashes too, but he's been underwhelming, just like JP Bays. So I haven't been impressed with either fighter. I think it's a tough fight to call. But I did come down on a side. So the offshore opened Cody Durden minus 145. The comeback was about plus 125. I guess I lean with the line move. Right now, JP Bays is minus 125. When I was writing my breakdowns for the Discord, at that time he was even money. So he has taken money. And after watching the tape, I agree with it, even though a lot of people don't think this kid should be in the UFC after his first 2 fights. I think he's going to win this fight. Do I feel great about it? No. But one thing that is a huge concern is Cody Durden's gas tank. His cardio in the second half of fights is a big problem for him. Because we've seen JP Bays and other promotions set a wicked pace for 15 minutes. We know he could do that. Cody Durden, from what we've seen in the UFC, cannot do that, which is going to give JP Bays an overwhelming advantage the second half of this fight. So I think I'm going to lean the over 2.5 rounds here. Is it bettable at minus 140? Probably not. But I do lean it goes over. I think the decision props are interesting on both these guys because I lean that this is going to go to a decision. I think it's plus 230 or plus 235 now on JP Bays to win by decision. If I was taking a shot, I would either take that decision line at plus 230. Actually, now that you've lost value, that's the only way you can go. Earlier in the week, I would have said take him on the money line at even money. I don't think you can do that anymore. I think if you're going to bet now, you've lost enough value where I think you have to shoot your shot on a method of victory if you fall on his side. If you fall on Cody Durden's side, you could just take the money line. But I can't believe I'm saying this, and I didn't think I would earlier in the week. But I'm gonna lean JP Bays here. I think he's gonna get it done. All right, Rallian Piva, Sergey Morozov. Interesting fight. Piva's he's a solid striker. His footwork is solid. He's good from range. He crashes the pocket well. His calf kicks are nice. And listen, I bet on him in that Kyler Phillips fight because I actually tailed a friend of mine that I respect his MMA knowledge. So if I don't have a feel on a fight, sometimes I'll tail him. And Kyler Phillips won that fight. I don't care if we cash that ticket or not, right? Kyler Phillips won that fight. But I was still impressed with Piva in that fight because he looked a lot better than I thought he would because I think Kyler Phillips is really, really good. He does make some decisions sometimes that'll make you scratch your head. But all in all, Piva's a solid Muay Thai striker. He's a decision machine. 14 out of his 21 wins are by decision. So chances are if he's winning the fight, it's going to be by decision. But what makes this an interesting fight is he's got a 75% takedown defense, which is really good. And it's going to get tested here against Sergey Morozov, right? I think you can make the argument that Sergey Morozov is better no matter where this fight goes. If you rate his striking highly, and I do. I've liked what I've seen out of him. I think his boxing is slick. I think it's more than good enough for the division. I think he's got real power for the weight class. He easily has the edge in physicality here. And he has a monumental grappling advantage. We already know that, right? His last name ends in OV. So my concern for Morozov is if he does not finish you, he's had problems with his cardio late in fights, and that has led to him getting finished late in fights. So that's a little bit worrisome. But this is easily his biggest edge in physicality that he's had in the cage in a while, right? And that should help him here. But like I said before, Piva is going to make you work for those takedowns. So the odds opened offshore at a pick'em. Since then, Morozov has now taken about 50 cents. And I agree with the move. I think that Piva is going to get clipped here. I think he's going to get dropped because his striking defense leaves a lot to be desired. And we've seen him hurt a lot in the cage. And I don't think that he can weather a storm from Sergey Morozov if he hits the button. I think he's going to go down. So at this point, you're going to probably have to avoid the money line because you've lost too much value. But I'm okay with that because I think you take your shot here on Sergey Morozov by KO in that plus 380 range. I think he's got a real chance to hurt Piva and put him down. I would say that if you want to back yourself up, the hedge spot is probably Piva by decision at 3-1 because, like I said earlier, 14 out of his 21 wins are by decision. So that's probably your hedge. But I'm not going to hedge. I think I'm just going to pull a trigger on him by knockout at plus 380. Aside from that, I don't really see anything here. Shailan Norton Beck against TJ Brown. So you guys know how I feel about Jairzinho Rosenstruck. I can't bet on a fucking guy that doesn't throw punches in a fight. I refuse to do it anymore. So with that being said, I can't bet on a guy that's landed 35 total significant strikes in his last 30 minutes in the octagon. And that's what Norton Beck has done in 30 minutes against Sean Soriano and Josh Kulabau. So, somehow he won the fight against Soriano, okay? Even though he didn't throw his hands at all. So since I don't bet on guys that don't throw their hands anymore, this fight automatically becomes TJ Brown or pass by default. Okay? So TJ Brown at least throws his hands, and a lot, right? So that immediately means that every single exchange in that fight on the feet, he's winning because he's throwing punches, right? Now, aside from that, he's big for the division. He has power, and he averages 4.5 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is stupid good. Okay? So I don't see how you can back anybody except TJ Brown in this fight. Now, the line opened offshore minus 250. Since then, Norton Beck has taken how much at this point? About 60 cents worth of a line move. And I said this yesterday. While I don't exactly agree with the line move because I like TJ Brown in this fight, I completely understand why people refuse to lay 250 on TJ Brown. And that's why this line has moved naturally towards his opponent, in my opinion. Okay? So we can't lay 250 because that's not what we fucking do on this site. So the best angle in this fight, in my opinion, is probably TJ Brown by decision at plus 120. Now, I will say that yesterday, Title on the DFS show, he liked TJ Brown to get the finish. I understand that, and I can see that. But I do think that Norton Beck probably steals some minutes in this fight, being a wet blanket like he does on the ground every fight he's in. So that makes me think that this fight's going to go longer than people think. So I'm going to lean TJ Brown by decision here at plus 120. That would probably be my look, personally. All right, next fight. Carlos Olberg, Tafon Nchukwi. So I'm actually really looking forward to this fight because I'm looking forward to fading Carlos Olberg. I don't like what I've seen, really. Nobody knows what's going to happen to this kid when somebody finally puts him on his back, right? Is he going to look like a fish out of water? Probably, when you consider that his entire background is kickboxing. He comes from city kickboxing, trains with Izzy. Chances are he's going to be god awful on his back, right? So I like the upside there. He has not impressed me at all. He looked okay in the first round against Kennedy Nishchukwu in his debut. He looked really good, if I'm being fair. He looked really good in the first round of that fight. But he's got 6 minutes of cardio, apparently. So he ends up getting finished in the second round easily by Kennedy Nishchukwu, right? And then in his win against Fabio Charant, it was the worst fight of the year. The most boring decision you've ever seen, at least in 2021, 2022, probably, right? So I don't give him any credit for that fight. It was a shit show. It was terrible. So his cardio is a really, really, really big issue. And more importantly, how he looks when he is finally taken down, while an unknown and a variable that I always stay away from in MMA. We know what happens 99% of the time when a kickboxer is on his back. It's not fucking good, right? So you don't normally think of Tafon Nchukwu as a ground specialist, right? But he laid the blueprint out already for Carlos Olberg when he fought Mike Rodriguez. Mike Rodriguez, another talented kickboxing Muay Thai striker, right? What did Nchukwu do to him? He worked his way into the clinch. He got the body lock. He dirty boxed, and he got the takedown, right? I expect the exact same game plan tonight. If he does that, he will either take Olberg down or he will make him work so hard to not get taken down that he will have nothing left in the second and third round. I firmly believe that. So I can't get away from Tafon Nchukwu here. I think that there's just way, way too much upside at these odds. I think he's going to get inside. I think he's going to work for takedowns. And I think that maybe he gets a stoppage late out of pure exhaustion, the same exact way Kennedy Nishchukwu did to Carlos Olberg. Now, My concern is Carlos Olberg, when Tafon Nchukwi is coming in on entry, is more dangerous than Mike Rodriguez. Could he catch him? He could. He could. But that's the only way he wins the fight, in my opinion. So Olberg opened a minus 140 favorite offshore. Right now, he's plus 110. So, and rightfully so. Tafon Nchukwi's taking the money. If you have not bet that already, you can't bet that now. I did bet that earlier in the week. And I also sprinkled on his knockout prop at plus 220 earlier in the week. So I like it. I like it. I think that Olberg's just a big pile of hype, in my opinion. Aside from that, I don't really see much here. Chris Curtis, Adolfo Vieira. I'm a Chris Curtis fan. I am. Yeah, you know, it's easy to root for a guy that has been a total journeyman. He had 34 fights for MMA promotions before he got his opportunity to go to the UFC. And when he went to the UFC, he made it fucking count. He bet on himself, and he made it count. He fucking knocked Phil Hawes dead, right? Then he finishes Brendan Allen. You know what I say? Good for you. That's what I say. It's what America's built on. Shoot your shot, kid. So he's going to have an overwhelming advantage on the feet. And I haven't slept. I did not sleep yesterday. So kind of feel like I'm on coke right now, but I'm not. So yeah, he's going to have an overwhelming advantage on the feet in this fight. His striking is not perfect, but he is technically sound. He's got power in his hands, and he can set a fucking pace. And that's exactly what I expect him to do. Now, the concern here is Adolfo Vieira is a world-class grappler. It hasn't fully transitioned over to MMA yet, and that's going to take some getting used to because a bunch of his accolades in BJJ came while wearing the gi, and MMA jiu-jitsu is very different. That's why he got tapped out by a fucking jobber in the UFC, and the world was stunned because you have to acclimate yourself to that kind of BJJ. Now, can he sub Curtis and get a win? Yeah, of course he could. But Chris Curtis has one submission loss in 36 fights. I'll take my chances. Because if this fight does stay on the feet, he's getting dropped. Period. So the line opened offshore. Curtis minus 180. And I think that line is a fair assessment, okay? So the move towards Vieira is surprising to me, but not really, because if you take a look at the odds in Chris Curtis's first two fights, the betting market does not respect him at all. I don't know why. They lost twice, but they don't respect him at all. I do. I'll take it. I'll take the 120. Thank you. So I'm fine with that number here at minus 120. At minus 120, you just bet the money line. Taking a look at the method of victory, he's even money by KO, right? At that point, you just bet the money line. You never know. Minus 120. So that's where I'm at there. Give me Chris Curtis. It was always fucking Chris Curtis. Next fight. Nate Maness, Umar Nurmagomedov. Yeah, Nurmagomedov is a fucking problem. Probably going to be a future champ at some point. He's about as close to a complete fighter as you can get. Phenomenal wrestler, phenomenal submission grappler, phenomenal cardio, a ridiculous kicking game. The best question mark kicks in the history of the sport. His weakness, there isn't any. But his boxing, technically, is probably the weakest part of his game. But it's improving every single fight. And I expect it to get better until it's elite. Because that's what these people do in fucking Dagestan. They are elite. So he's the biggest favorite on the card, rightfully so. And that's all I'll say about him. Now, on the flip side, Nate Maness has been really, really fortunate to still have one loss on his record. He's been hurt in every UFC fight he's been in, and he's had to come back to win those fights, okay? So maybe you can do that against Tony Gravely, Luke Sanders, and Johnny Munoz. You can't do that against a Nurmagomedov, even a cousin. So once he gets hurt in this fight, which he will, he should be finished without an issue. Nurmagomedov, he's world class, okay? And if you keep getting saved by the bell against average fighters in the UFC, how can you expect to last 15 minutes with this kid? And as far as I'm concerned, if Umar Nurmagomedov keeps getting fucking jobbers to fight, then you have to bet him inside the distance every fight until he fights somebody inside the top 8 of the division, maybe. Maybe that's when you can start to think about it. But until then, you just take him inside the distance because you have to expect them to get the job done against this level of competition. Aside from that, I'm done with this one. Moises, Christos Ciagos. I don't like this fight at all. Moises he's been at American Top Team since he's like a 5-year-old, right? But the last fight against Joel Alvarez is concerning. Everybody can write off the loss to Islam Makhachev. He's probably a future champion at 155. But it's hard to watch that fight against Joel Alvarez when he just sat there and got overwhelmed with strikes until he turtled and just like Mark Goddard had to come in and save him. That is not a look I expected to see from Moises. So when punches are coming in bunches and he's not throwing back, he looks like he's got that Donald Cerrone gene where he just goes up against the cage and packs it the fuck in. Now, on the DFS show, Title liked Moises here, I think, a lot. And it's a really hard fight for me to call. So if he has a strong lean on it, I would probably lean his way and go with him because I really don't have a strong read in this fight. I mean, Ciagos is going to come out with his hair on fire. We know that. He's going to start fast, and then he's going to fade in the second half of fights, which is what he normally does, okay? But if he comes out and really puts it on him and starts to pressure him, is Moises going to do, is he going to turtle again? I don't know. I rate Joel Alvarez pretty high. So maybe he did that against him, but he won't do it against Ciagos. I don't know the answer to that. So this fight is going to be, I'll be honest, This fight's going to be a total pass for me. I lean the over 2.5 rounds, I guess, at -125. Aside from that, my money. I'll tell you right now, there will not be a play on the spreadsheet for this fight, and I probably won't make a bet on the live show in this fight unless Gavin has like a really strong take and he could sell me on it. Aside from that, I'm going to avoid this fight like the plague. Next fight. Josh Parisian against Alan Buday. This is why the term gamble responsibly was invented. If you guys have been watching me for 4 fucking years, you should know what I'm going to say. They're both awful. The fight shouldn't be on the main card, right? Both these guys blow. One guy hasn't won a fight in 38 months. The other guy lost to Parker Porter and Dontel Mays. And you want me to put my money on this fight? I wouldn't put my ex-wife's money on this fight. And I can't stand her. So, please, don't bet the fight. Pass. There are other spots. Who the fuck knows what's going to happen in this fight? Like, these people breaking down the Josh Parisian Alan Buday fight, stop. You don't have a fucking clue. The 2 guys that are going to fight don't have a fucking clue. So how are you breaking it down from fucking Montana in your basement? Stop. Pass the fight. Neil Magny, Shavkat Rakhmonov. I'm probably going to be against 99% of the people betting on this fight. I waited to bet the fight because I thought that money would continue to come in on him. Let me just check the current odds. Let's see what they're at now. Neil Magny's plus 350 right now. I think I got him at plus 330. I probably should have continued to wait. I'm not perfect too, boys. So yeah, I got him at around plus 330. Here's the thing, man. I say it every week, right? Betting on MMA, if it's your job or if you are a hardcore recreational sports bettor, it's about one thing. Fighting is a difficult sport to figure out. You find your small advantage plays and you press the fucking button every time, no matter if you think the fighter is going to win the fight or not. If the number is wrong, the number is wrong. That's it. Period. That's what this fight comes down to. Okay? Because no matter how good that you think Shavkat Rakhmonov is, okay, and personally, he could be a future champion. Everybody's talking about Chimaev. This kid is a fucking stud. Like, when we see that Chimaev Rakhmonov fight, I'm going to be stiff for 15 minutes. So, don't get it twisted. I think that this kid is phenomenal. But you still have to judge him on the opponents that he's faced, right? That's all you have to go on. So, has he looked phenomenal in these fights? You're fucking A-right he has. Because he has fight-changing power. His striking is technically sound. He's explosive. He could beat you from everywhere. He's a submission freak. He is the fucking truth. Okay? But He should not be a minus 450 favorite, man, when Neil Magny is the first legitimate top 10 guy the kid's ever seen in his life. Ever. Okay? Because beating Cowboy Oliveira at 100 years old, beating Michel Prazeres at 40 years old, beating Carlston Harris, that means nothing. Nothing. What does that mean? In the grand scheme of that division, that means absolutely nothing. Show me something against somebody that can fight. Now, he's going to fight somebody that can fight. Say what you want about Neil Magny, but he is a smart fighter, okay? He knows where he is at all times. He knows when he's going to be in trouble, and he fights the smart fight. And that's why he hasn't been finished in 4 years, right? 4 years. And he's fought some killers, absolute killers. So he's going to play the cage control game. You're going to look, Magny is going to try to make this fight as absolutely boring as he can, because deep down inside, he probably knows it's the only chance he has, if we're being fair. Okay? But that doesn't mean that he can't win the fight. And that doesn't mean that the number isn't objectively wrong. I was on the fence at plus 230. At plus 350, there is value in that number. Now, did I back Dan Ige at plus 340 a couple weeks ago against Evloev? Yeah, for the same reason. Did I lose that fight? Yeah. Did I back Jan Blachowicz for the same reason against Alexander Rakic? Yeah. Did I win that fight? Yep. That's the game, boys. You're going to lose a lot more of these than you're going to win, because the break-even point on a plus 330 bet is 23.3%. That's all you got to hit. So that's the fucking bottom line, because I said so. So give me Neil Magny plus 350 and fuck everybody else. Now, if I was going to bet Ciagos Rakhmonov, and I know that the vast majority of the people watching this will bet Ciagos Rakhmonov, you have to take him inside the distance, because you can't lay that number. So you're going to have to shoot your shot. Chances are, if he wins the fight, very good chance he finishes Neil Magny, even though he hasn't been finished in 4 years, because the kid does look like the real deal. So you would much rather lay your minus 150 than your minus 430. Okay? So if you are going to do that, that's the way I suggest you do it. I'm going to do what I do every week. So give me Neil Magny at plus 340. Now, are we done yet? Fuck. Oh no, the main event. The main event. The fucking casuals are like, who the fuck is Gamrot and Arman Tsarukyan? They're the future of this division. That's who they are. So if you don't know, you're going to find out tonight. Gamrot is a serious grappler, a BJJ black belt, a multiple-time European champion in his weight class at the Abu Dhabi Submission Championships, at least the qualifiers for Europe, right? And what makes him so tricky are his entry points. Like I said yesterday, he can come flying in for takedowns from every angle possible in every fight. His offensive and his defensive submission skills are very, very good. Now, he made his bones at KSW in Poland. He basically owned that promotion for a few years, a multi-time division champion at one point. And he had about, I think, like a half dozen title fights, I want to say. And he won every one of them, right? He comes over with a ton of steam to the UFC. He drops his first fight for the promotion against Kudalitz by split decision. But the fight was close. Could have gone either way, I think. Now, since then, he's done what he's supposed to do. He has his wins over Holtzman and a very washed Jeremy Stevens, which we just saw the other night in PFL, and Diego Ferreira, right? He is a wrestler at heart that's into a phenomenal grappler. But you know what? His striking's solid. It's not bad. When you watch the tape, it's not bad. His cardio's been tested. His chin's been tested. Kid's rock solid. Rock solid. Are there concerns? Yeah. Like, you know, he looks a lot of the time to be a one-hitter quitter. His combinations don't flow like a natural striker would. So the volume concerns you a little bit, but not as much as other fighters on the card. But all in all, man, it's really hard to say anything bad about him. Kid's a stud. Now, his opponent, Arman Tsarukyan, just another stud. Like, absolutely flawless in the UFC since he lost his first fight to Islam Makhachev. It's Islam Makhachev. The only guy in the world right now that I think has a fucking prayer against Charles Oliveira. Okay? So, I don't fault him for that loss. So, it's unfortunate that he ran into Islam. But, you know, it is what it is. Now, in saying that, he's the only fighter that made Islam Makhachev look human for a round. Yes, it was only for one round, but he made him look human for a round. But since then, he's been excellent. Absolutely put it on Joel Alvarez like it was a horror movie, right? That was his last fight. And this is an interesting fight because both of these guys aren't excellent strikers, and they're both excellent wrestlers and grapplers. But for as good as I think that Gamrot is as a grappler, I know the expression "there are levels to this game" is fucking used by everybody, but there are. He is not as good of a wrestler as Arman Tsarukyan, in my opinion. I'm confident that Arman will win these grappling exchanges. I am. And if that's the case, I have to side with him to win the fight, even if this is technically a step up in competition since his UFC debut. So, and I'll be honest, when I saw the odds, I thought it would be an auto play for me on Gamrot. I felt pretty good about that. But then after I watched the tape, I just can't bet against this kid. I can't bet against Tsarukyan. The odds opened offshore. I mean, he was minus $1.40 offshore. Imagine us seeing those lines in the legal market. Now he's minus 265. So I understand the move. I get it. They're, in my opinion, that they are both the future of the division, but you know, there's nothing you can do. They're going to run into each other. It is what it is. Now, if I was going to bet this fight, which I probably am, I can't lay that money line when the number opened offshore at minus $1.40, right? So the hard decision for me is it's a 5-round fight. And the way that these two guys fight, this could easily go 25 minutes. Easily. They're both game. And they are both up for the challenge. So so he can win by decision. Aside from that, we know he could catch anybody in a submission. And if you saw his last fight, what he did to Joel Alvarez from top control was borderline criminal. So that puts you in a spot where you're like, well, which way do I go? Decision, knockout, submission, which is what makes you say, fuck it, I'll just bet the money line. You can't do that, though, at that number. You have to take a stand. So I think the stand that I'm going to take is I'm going to take him by decision or submission at -110. And if he ground and pounds Gamrot to dust, I lose. So be it. What are you going to do? Right? But Gamrot is so good on the ground. I have to have faith that he is going to have the defense necessary to avoid what happened to Joel Alvarez. So I'm going to say he wins by submission or decision at -110. And I'm going to go that route. So there you have it, boys. An hour strong, breaking down every fight. And other than that, you're on your own, as the great Gabe Morency says. So, yeah, I gave out a shit ton of plays. If you're just tuning in, go back and watch. Also, if you're into DFS and you're going to be playing a lot of lineups tonight, go over to the Run Pure Sports side and make sure that you watch that DFS and bets video, because Title and Draft Cheat bring some really, really good info from a DFS perspective. So check that out. And consider checking out the website. Go over to Run Pure Bets. Take a look around. Go over to Run Pure Sports. Take a look around. They're the best DFS guys in the industry. We're pretty good at what we do on our side. And it's well worth the money for $60 a month. Other than that, regardless if you tail me or fade me today, I hope your action runs pure. JJ will be back tomorrow with Joey at noon to do the MLB Sunday video. Coop and I will be back tomorrow morning, probably at 11 a.m. to go over the NASCAR slate. I was able to get a nice 7-unit winner on Ryan Preece yesterday. That's plus 700. Hopefully we can get the Xfinity race home today on the live betting show. And hopefully Coop and I can make some magic tomorrow. And then at 1 o'clock on the DFS side, we're going to be talking the NASCAR race, me, Coop, and JJ, who I'll blow for about the first 5 minutes of the show tomorrow, because 2 weeks ago he shipped the last 100K Cup race. So, kid's a stud. Anything he touches is gold. So I encourage everybody to check out those shows. They're free this weekend. And aside from that, head over to our website, check us out. If you like us, give us a shot. If you don't like us, fuck off. Good luck this weekend, boys. I'll see you tomorrow.